Hello, welcome to the Shelly Show. I'm Shailendra and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. I hope you and your family are well. For you to view this episode and other sessions that I run on emerging technologies, I would request you to follow me so you can be alerted when a live session is on. This gives you an opportunity to ask a direct question to our guests. So please follow me if you're watching it on LinkedIn. If you're watching it on YouTube, press the subscribe button and smash the bell icon. If you're watching me on Twitter, then press the follow button. And if you're watching on Facebook, please press the like button so that more and more people can learn from this particular episode. Now, today's subject is very dear to me, and it's personalization. It's very close to my heart. I have spent around about 15 years in building stuff out of personalization. So we'll be talking personalization today. To succeed in today's digital environment, organizations must deliver smarter, more customer-centric interactions that feel like they were tailored for each one of the user, for their specific set of circumstances. It must be more dynamic and more predictive in nature than the current personalization techniques. Personalization is an investment in creating better customer experiences. And who better knows that than our first guest, which is always Marc Teerlink. Marc, who is the vice president, global vice president for Intelligent Enterprise Solutions and Artificial Intelligence. He's been active in the startup community as an angel investor, mentor, and board member. Before I bring him in, I just want to ask you guys one question. Are you watching this live or a replay? Please mention that in the comment section if you're watching it live or a replay, so that we get to know where are we getting our audience from. Okay, so without any further ado, let me bring in Marc Teerlink. Hi, Marc. Welcome to the Shelly Show, the 7th episode of Artificial Intelligence Inside Startup Series. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Shelly. How are you doing?
Very, very good. So, Marc, let's talk about personalization today. How do you see startups working on creating personalization? So, have you seen a lot of focus on startups talking personalization and doing work on personalization? What have you seen in the market?
So yes and no at the same time. So let's start with the no. I haven't seen much startup focusing on what you call the enterprise segment in personalization, like our coming guest with MyWave is going to do. What I have seen are either information consumers or retail focus. Let me give you an example, right? Mm-hmm. When you're a retailer, the first thing is to be in the moment with the customer, right? When a consumer comes, especially in your digital channel, your app, etc., there is this shopper doubt, as they call it, right? You're almost going all the way to the checkout, and they're like, So what's important there is that you continually provide a relevant contextual context, right? So other products were done, combined products, and how do I optimize you getting the best order? And that mostly means that you need to go what I call less a channel view, but a unified customer view. Like you have done this in the store, you have done this here, you have done this there in the past, you bought this 2 years ago, so I can imagine it's up for renewal. And to get that individual customer experience at an enterprise scale, we have seen larger companies applying AI, for instance, to the web content or to the digital experience, but not so much to the information consumer. So what we have seen is typical enterprise software offering participants. Adobe has started doing that, etc. But it is still more about optimizing the process. So how do I not type one thing in or type it? A really good example was last week when we had Alpha.ai, which was all about getting the data, doing the heavy lifting of getting the data and processing it and making it ready. That was phenomenal value focus, but that was that core part. But that front end, that one-on-one, the best example is, take you and me, right? We both get some of the similar reports in SAP. Mm-hmm. And from your point of view, right, you directly make a slice down by industry, and then you go to product line, and then you go, right? From my point of view, I in my job, taking it global, I first must say, what is happening globally? Like which of the relative, not absolute sales, but relevant sales and relevant pipelines are there? And which of my products are then adopted within that region in an industry? So we use the same data, but our entry point is there. And it is so much nicer if you have technology that actually says, okay, these are like your words and sentences are being finished on your iPhone, or right, that just knows what are the normal 3 steps that you do instead of you completely filter this, like that. And that kind of enterprise personalization, not just in the process, but in experience, that's really where I think we're going now in 2021, 2022.
Okay, that's very good. Just can I blatantly and shamefully promote my book, because that has got 5 different stories, and 2 of the stories are personalization. So guys, if you're watching this and if you haven't still yet read Making Money Out of Data, it's available on Amazon. So have a read. Anyways,
and if you really have a brilliant question, you might every so many episodes, we give for the most brilliant question a signed copy.
Absolutely, and we've done that a few times.
Yeah.
So if you have a brilliant question for our guests today, you may get a free copy as well. So that's a very good idea. Okay, let's talk about examples, Mark. So any particular example? I've got millions of those, but any particular example of personalization has made a huge impact? Well, apart from the success stories, if you could share one failure as well, because we've got a few failures as well.
So, well, I'm going to break that in 2, right? I mean, I've worked a substantial part of my life, especially with consumer data. I'm trained in consumer behavior and economic psychology. And the biggest concern is that, especially before GDPR, companies used CRM and marketing mailing systems to do the famous brilliant mail. Dear Shelley, you have been last year with your wonderful wife at a hotel and we would like to invite you back. And your wife opens that like, Shelley, we weren't there last year. I'm like, oh, stupid marketing, right? So sometimes using the data and taking it for face value, whether you were there, whether you were there with someone else, right? Not always the smartest part. So we need to continuously balance the risk of the message and the value that it brings us versus the value that it brings you. And I think the most substantial blunders now in AI, where AI as a set of algorithms magnifies your, I'm trying to not get a beep when I'm going to say that, but your mistake, another word for that, start with cluster. What you then see is that you make one mistake, but it really goes big and bad, right? And the point is, customers are more digital literate than ever before, consumers. So we don't want a letter that says, hey man, I have something great for you that's in my interest. But how do you truly find what makes someone ticks? What is that experience that someone wants? And the biggest failures have missed that mark. They've been focusing on the brilliancy of their product, but not on the value it brings to that individual. And I think that's where those campaigns and personalization have really gone wrong. And I want to be nice this morning, so I'm not going to mention any company names, but you're out there, you know I'm talking about you.
Absolutely. And there was one, if I want to not mention the name, but there was someone who sent a personalized campaign to tell someone that their daughter is pregnant. If you remember that story from the US, and if most of the people who are watching this, okay, guys, one thing, if you've got any question, please put that in the comment section. I'll definitely take that question to a guest, and we will answer all the questions. So please ask questions. Secondly, I've just figured out that you could share this particular episode if you're watching on Facebook to various groups, and it'd be great if you could share this to other groups so that more and more people can learn from what Mark is saying and our guests are talking about personalization today. So talking about personalization, there is one company which has been working and focusing on personalization altogether, and that company is called MyWave.AI. So today we will have the entire leadership team of MyWave.AI. But what is MyWave.AI? MyWave.AI is a powerful, intelligent personalization technology that delivers human-like contextual intelligence to all digital interactions and drives personalized outcomes for customers and to deliver improved relationship, because it's all about 4 R's: the recommendation, the relevance, the recency, and the relationships that you build for brands. MyWave.AI is one of the only handful of new partners, SAP partners, endorsed and certified by SAP globally in its new innovative endorsed application partner program. Aberdeen Research has recently published a paper on intelligent personalization outlining the value drivers and the benefits of the technology, and SAP and MyWave.ai have worked together to produce solution briefs for the five compelling, they've got 5 compelling solutions that can be used globally. So let me get their leadership team one by one. So our first guest is Tim Ebbeck. Tim is a leader in AI-based personalization orchestration, which is the most important part of personalization. His prior roles included CEO of SAP Australia New Zealand, CEO of Oracle Australia New Zealand, and ANZ CEO of Automation Anywhere. Tim has extensive market experience in transforming and growing businesses, driving revenue, and building and closing large commercial transactions to successfully implement strategic business changes. Tim is a company director of a number of technology organizations and is a corporate advisor. So let me, without any further ado, get Tim Ebbeck. Hi, Tim. Welcome
Hey,
to the show.
Shaylee, how are you, mate? You're looking well.
Very good. How are you doing?
Mate, I am on top of the world. How could I not be? I live in beautiful Australia.
Absolutely. Living in Sydney and having such a life with such weather outside today, amazing.
It is amazing.
Good stuff. So, Tim, give me a second. I'll get the other guests as well, and then we'll start the conversation. Our second guest is Amy, who is a co-founder of MyWave.ai and works closely with the CEO in opening up markets and with enterprise customers around the world. She's a global technology exec in demand as a public speaker and expert in topics including AI, next generation business models, and the critical role that AI and personal data plays in transforming the customer experience. So without any further ado, let me get Amy. Drum rolls. Hi, Amy. How are you? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, guys. Geraldine and I are sitting next to each other.
That's right. Okay, you can speak now.
When she comes on, you'll be able to hear me. But great to see you guys. Wonderful. It wouldn't be one of these without some tech malfunction.
Okay, let me get Geraldine.
Yeah.
By the way, before I get Geraldine, I must say that there are more than 50 people watching this episode at the moment. So guys, if you've got a question, put that in the comment section, and I'll definitely ask that question. And if you're watching on Facebook, please share this to the Facebook groups and also like and share whatever it is. So finally, we have the CEO of MyWave, Geraldine McBride. Geraldine is a renowned enterprise business technology and AI thought leader with a science background. Her global career spans 30 years with exec roles at IBM, Dell, SAP. She's a former CEO and president of several SAP divisions, North America, Asia Pacific, ANZ, and founder of MyWave.ai. She's the director of ASX listed, now this is fun, National Australia Bank, Fisher & Paykel Healthcare, and Sky TV. She is hot property. Let us get her in. Hi, Geraldine.
Hey, Charlie. Nice to see you.
Welcome to the Shelley Show. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Let's put on record, both of you, Amy and Geraldine, you are in New Zealand. Tim,
Yes, we are. Yep.
you are in Australia, in Sydney?
I am indeed.
Absolutely. I'm in Sydney, and Mark, you are in Netherlands. So it's
I am today in Amsterdam because we have gone to a semi-lockdown.
Oh, wow.
we're
We're almost COVID-free down here, but not quite.
I know. One of the fun things is Geraldine has been at IBM, Geraldine has been at SAP, and we only meet digital Geraldine. I mean, what's up with that? We never, in a whole career, have met face to face. So,
Me too. So I've been at SAP and I've been at IBM at different times. So I think there is a lot of, and Tim, you've been at SAP as well.
And I've also been at Oracle, and that explains a lot of my bad habits, Sally.
Okay, Geraldine.
and now we know it all.
Geraldine, first question is for you. Tell us about your journey. How did it all start? And talk us through about MyWave.AI.
Well, the journey started actually when I was the president and CEO in SAP in North America. And we've got some funny photos. That one on the left there at Half Moon Bay. We brought a bunch of the senior executives together in SAP from development and also from the field to look at all the kinds of trends and what was happening. And one of the work packages that we came up with there was what would happen if you completely flipped the data model and you started to build intelligence centered on your customer to create these two-way intelligent personalization experiences between an enterprise brand and a customer. So the idea happened in Half Moon Bay in California back in 2012 in San Francisco. SAP at the time thought it was a great idea, but I must say it wouldn't have seen the light of day inside SAP. So I actually left SAP in 2013, continued to stay in touch, and got together with two other wonderful people called Tim Ebbeck and Amy. And we went and made that technology real since then. So that photo in the middle is us sitting in the barn in Queenstown, New Zealand, where every great startup story has a barn or a garage where you start some idea. The stuff on the right-hand side are mind maps, which came off some flip charts on, well, how would you even go about building this? And thank bloody God, AI came along in the middle of it. It was like, actually, customers are quite lazy. They don't want to do too much hard work. All the data exists. Let's get AI to do the hard work and actually take the workload off the enterprise and also off the customer. And so MyWave.AI was born, and we've had an amazing journey on it so far with shareholders, customers, investors, and SAP.
Good stuff. Question for Amy. Let me just remove this and get everyone on the screen. Okay. So Amy, when people use MyWave.AI, what is the differentiated customer experience? How is it different different than a normal personalization? What is the difference?
Yeah, so I think, for us, in terms of, extending that personalization category, the way I like to think about it is, if we go way back in time, right, before I was born, like say back in to the 1950s, right, take banking, because Shirley's on the board of, a bank. Everyone would have had a personal banker. You had that real human touch, right? They would have known you. They would have understood you. Every time you had a problem, you could have called them and it was the same person. And then you think what we did, right? What we did was we automated, we optimized, and then we kind of siloed everything, and then we kind of digitized it, which was great for the business. But then I think what we realized is, hey, hang on for a second. What we've lost is that relationship with the customer. We've lost that personalization that we had when we had that human element in it. And so what we're really trying to create is we're kind of like the technology that brings all of those things together again, centered on the customer, to really drive those human-like experiences, those human-like interactions, but through digital mediums, I think. So for us, that is, our passion. And, particularly in my age group, it's a necessity. No one wants to have to, call into contact centers anymore. So I'm super passionate about it as well. That I just try to create the experiences that I want to have, right, with brands.
Mm-hmm. So talking personalization, I usually give this example, and it's an old story. I usually tell people that when I was a kid, I used to go to the grocer next door. I was brought up in India, and he would know what chocolate I want, and I drink Coke. And so moment I would appear, without even asking the question, I'll have Coke out and a chocolate out. So he knew exactly what I wanted. Now, and that was, well, he must be serving what, 200, 300 people. So it was easy for him to remember what's going on. Now, turn that around and see that there are millions of customers that go to a store on daily basis. How can you remember each one of those? And there comes technology. And that is where I think MyWave makes a huge difference. Now, a question is, and please stop me if I go too far. Do you guys also do a lot of prediction upfront based on the social and the internal transaction data, or is it purely, there are two ways of doing it. One is if you do that prediction wise, or you ask the question to the customer as well. There are two different ways of doing it. So which way do you follow?
Well, do you want to answer that one?
You can answer that one, yeah.
All right. Well, we do both actually. So we can take predictive information, but the problem with predictive information is it's often based on poor data and doesn't really know about me and what I want to do now and what I want to do next. So we can use past data because we know what you've done in the past. But the most powerful data is actually what you're doing now and what I want to do next. So we call that intents. And so what we're able to do is we're able to take the customer intent, use the context of what they've done before, but also use the context of data and what we know about you now, and also what you've signaled that you want to do next to create that curated, easy, guided experience. So as Amy said, we can be the personal shopper on a website, we can be the personal banker in a banking experience, and in fact, we can even bring banking and retail experiences together like nobody else can. So we've designed it to do both, and it recursively can learn also as it goes. So we don't have to feed it all the world's data. It's actually very quick to deploy because the AI learns as it is working as well, and remembers, and then uses that contextually for the next time you come back to do something else.
Sorry,
I think it's a really important point, Shelley, because we all know this when you go to, for instance, Amazon or Bull or one of these larger websites, and you bought a Canon camera a year ago, and it keeps, for the love of God, telling you to buy another camera and to buy another lens. And I'm like, dude, I just spent $4,000 1.5 years ago. Don't predict the past on me. Do not predict the past.
Yeah,
that's right. And that's why you're so right, Mark. And that's why that predictive stuff actually doesn't work. We use it. So what we do is we can use that based on the past, but we don't keep throwing, the running shoes don't keep chasing you around the internet all the time. You only need one pair of running shoes.
Absolutely. Well, it depends. So, for example, if you're looking at nappies, then nappies you will definitely need after a week or so. But if it is a camera, you will only buy a camera once in, say, a couple of years, 3 years, depending upon where you are. So I think, Geraldine or Amy, any particular use case that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two aspects to this, right? So there's kind of you're coming and making a buying decision that's maybe like as you said, a camera, which you're doing every couple of years, right? So you can come in and we'll know about you, we'll remember you, we'll use any contextual information that we know to try and get you the best camera, and we can even guide you through that, right? So we can say, well, what kind of photographer are you? What do you typically do? What kind of level you are? How much do you want to spend? And we can use all of that information combined with what we already know about you to make really great recommendations. And to your point, we're not going to come back and recommend the same camera to you in a year's time, right? So that's one kind of interaction that we can have. And then I think when you have those kind of repeat purchases, right? So being able to say, well, I have to order diapers and I probably have to order them over, a certain kind of, pattern because I use a certain number every week. Our AI is able to actually watch for that and say, well, great, if you're using, I don't know, 10 diapers a week, for example, we can actually be automating those sorts of things. So we can say, well, great, we know you order these many diapers. Do you just want me to order the same number of diapers again? We know you love these diapers. And then if you come back and say, actually, and even to the point, if we know how old your child is, we can then even be recommending when your child gets to a different age and needs different size diapers, come back and say, look, we can reorder these diapers, but we think your child might actually need some bigger diapers. And we can be kind of useful in the context of because we know that stuff about you, useful in the context. And because we try and deal with the customer in a sense that, we kind of have that bi-directional sharing, we try and make it not too creepy, and also kind of act under customer permission. So if you say to me, no, just, stop, I don't want to hear anything more about diapers, we can actually remember that and say, well, great, okay, we'll have a slightly different relationship with you because no one wants to be creepy, no one wants to be pushy. So there's so many things that we can do. And again, we bring it back to that human element. How do you want a human person to interact with you? That is how we try and create our AI to interact with you.
Okay, before I get to my next question, there are more than 50 people still watching this episode, which is great. Guys, if you have a question, put that in the comment section and I will ask that to the ladies and Tim and Mark. So my question to Tim now. Tim, there are two aspects of an organization. There is the benefit to the customer, which Amy talked about. And then there is the benefit to your customers, which is MyWave's customers, right? So what are the kind of benefits that you see for your customers, your organizations that use your technology? What are the kind of benefits that they get? What have you seen?
Yeah, so they're really good questions, and I can't tell you how great it is to be able to say a few words. You know what it's like having to talk with those two ladies every single day? Mate, this is so wonderful. We actually have equal opportunity for older blokes.
Oh, you poor old bloke.
So think of the benefits of intelligent personalisation as coming in two categories. So the first one is, in terms of the organisations using intelligent personalisation, and MyWave is a very sophisticated intelligent personalisation capability, because it takes data from different sources and orchestrates that data, and then it uses artificial intelligence, natural language processing to make the engagement two-way, as Amy just said. So the first style of benefit that organisations get from this relates to, let's call it the sales side of the organisation, the customer-facing side of the organisation. Yep. And they come in a number of different areas. So the first one is the ability for an organisation to cross-sell and upsell to its customers because it knows more about them in a trusted, contextual way. So the diaper example is a really good example, but let me use the camera example. If you bought a camera 4 years ago, you might just still be taking photographs of landscapes with it. Or you may have actually moved on to astronomy and been using a camera to take photographs of stars. Having a constant updated experience gives you the ability to cross-sell further capability to your customer, provided you know what their current intent is or their current context is. So cross-sell and upsell is a monstrous benefit. And according to research done by Aberdeen independently, it's almost a 300% increase in the ability to cross-sell and upsell. Secondly, as a result of that deeper personal relationship, the improvement in profitability that you get per customer is almost double. So if you've got an intelligent personalization capability, your profitability per customer is going to be almost twice as high compared to those if you don't. Therefore, those two factors alone will give you a monstrous improvement. A 10 percentage point improvement in customer lifetime value. They're going to be stickier, they're going to buy more, they're going to stay with you longer. And that's going to also lead to a significantly higher, almost a 30% higher customer satisfaction score. And that's all that's going to lead to a higher revenue number for the company. So on the revenue side of things, there's some proven demonstrable research metrics. Importantly, there's also, for those customers, for those employees of an organisation engaging with customers, the employee engagement where intelligent personalisation is deployed, it's almost double. It's significantly higher because the employees are doing the high value stuff. They're not doing the stuff they don't like doing, the mundane stuff. So that's on the revenue side of things. When it comes to the cost side of things, think of some key cost drivers for organisations that cause their customers to be frustrated and frankly, impact the bottom line of the organisation. So contact centres in the COVID era have been absolutely inundated. We all know that. The ability to resolve an issue at first contact when you're deploying intelligent personalisation is almost 20 percentage points higher than when you're not using intelligent personalisation. So you can resolve issues quicker Your average call handling time improves. That means you've got more capacity in your contact center, to be honest, and you can actually offload a lot of the call handling and a lot of the issue resolution to a digital engagement with the customer across any channel. One of the benefits of MyWave is it doesn't matter whether it's a website, a mobile app, a built-in app, even a call center or an in-store engagement, or even using an avatar or a chatbot. Now, all of those technologies can be deployed and enhanced using MyWave technology. That's going to result in a massive reduction in annual service costs for your organization. So that's going to be an improvement in terms of capacity and lower dollars. And it's going to improve your customer effort scores. Customers are actually going to think that you're doing a better job because you are doing a better job. Finally, for the chief marketing officer, and we all know the old saying that half my marketing budget is wasted, I just don't know which half. When you have a better, more personalized relationship with all of your customers, their context better. You're not going to be wasting money on marketing programs that don't work. So you're not going to be going to Mark trying to sell him another camera when he's just bought one or another set of joggers. You're going to be talking about things that are relevant to them, and therefore your return on marketing is going to be very significant. Now, those two groups of benefits add up to very, very material improvements for an organization and, of course, for their customers.
Good stuff. As an organization, what is the revenue model that you have for the customers? Do you do skin in the game? Do you do, you use us? What is the revenue model that you've got?
Yeah, so our model is, there's a couple of very important points to make in answering that question. The first thing is that MyWave is a cloud-based technology. However, it gets deployed in the customer's environment, be that in their cloud environment, public or private, or even on premise if they still want to run things on premise. And that's a very strategic choice we took because a lot of our customers are regulated. And as we all know that privacy is a very major issue globally. So it's very important that we sit behind the firewall and do our fancy stuff behind the firewall of the customer, particularly regulated customers. Secondly, that's really important to us because the target customer for MyWave is an organization that's got lots of customers and lots of transactions. So think of utilities, banks, insurance companies, government, in terms of citizen services, travelers in the case of travel. They're the sort of target industries we look at. That's how we deploy. We price on a subscription basis principally. So and we price effectively per use case. So where a customer has certain use cases, we'll price on a subscription basis based on their usage of the technology and the benefits that they're obtaining from the technology. So one of the nice things about being a young, vibrant company is that we can be very flexible and aligned to customer outcomes in the way we price.
Brilliant. Geraldine, when you started the whole MyWave story, what was the original concept and how has it moved from what it was when you started? Because things would have changed over the years to where it is reached now. So what is the change you've seen?
Quite a bit. It's actually interesting because when we were preparing for this session, we went back and looked at all our old photos and all our old diagrams, and this was the original concept or the end game. And in fact, it's quite interesting if you look at it. We actually haven't really deviated too much from the path. From the original vision, which was to get to know the customer, who I am, what I want, what's the context, who's my family, and make my life easier and get to know me. And being able to do that with the enterprise and also with the small, medium enterprise marketplace. And what we've done is we've evolved that model to essentially using AI. So when we came up with the concept, we realized that we needed something smart in the middle that would remove the human work, the hard work for the customer, and also the hard work for the enterprise employee. And so it was very lucky timing where we were able to start to use AI components. And also one of the other design principles was it needed to adapt to any industry. It needed to be very easy to train. It needed to learn as it went, and it needed to deploy quickly. So the first deployments of MyWave, when we first started out, it took about 6 months. It wasn't that smart, and it took a long time. And then we then it got smarter and smarter as it went. Now it's actually pretty smart, and we can deploy in weeks. In fact, the amount of time that's taken is often, the customer says, now what can I get it to do? And some customers come and talk to us and say, I want it to do that. And if they know what they want to do and they've got the data, we can bring it up literally, in days and weeks. If they're not too sure what they want it to do, we take them through what we call an SAP flash process, where we benchmark what the opportunities are, where the experience gaps are, what can we do that's really cool, and then we can bring that out, and they can take a little bit longer, but then they can bring out an incredibly cool and very differentiated offering that delivers all the benefits that Tim talked about. So it's very innovative, and it really is tapping into the behavioral shift that COVID-19 has brought, where COVID means there's a 300% increase in the online digital channel, and that's overloading the contact centers, and it's actually being driven very much through the websites and the apps. And what we're able to do is offload between 30 and 50% off the contact centers through using intelligent personalization. And we're also able to deliver, way better metrics in terms of, that cross-sell and upsell that Tim talked about, through, creating essentially a personal shopper or personal banker or personal advisor type experience across your website and your apps.
So I like to chip in that, because I really think that Geraldine just struck a point, right? The fact that COVID now has magnified the flaws and the perils of the digital delivery of companies that were able to be omni-channel or still had siloed channels. And there are companies that I'm shocked that they say, well, we are fashion, we only got 6% of our revenue in digital. And I said, how is it going now? Yeah, it's less than 6%. And I'd like, what's going wrong? And while AI provides context, it also magnifies where you fail, I wanted to use another word, with what I call flawless execution. And because what you're doing is you're turning your customers even more proactive digital with personalization, which is phenomenal. But then you got to deliver. So what is, let's go to Amy first. Amy, what is your experience, right? You built this phenomenal product. Bang, you make this promise to your customers. And then your customer has oh, by the way, my backend, my supply chain, takes 6 weeks to deliver an overnight delivery. Let's blame it on COVID and the mailman, etc. And then the because say, yeah, your tool is not doing what it does. Well, actually, your tool is doing great. The organization isn't. How do you deal with it?
So it's actually very interesting you bring this up. We learned very early on to very quickly do our homework in terms of what our customers have and what they don't have. And if they don't have something, we typically try and help them fill those gaps before we go live on certain things. So definitely that was a big learning for us. And I think the other thing we found as well is this concept of corporate spaghetti. So, I think a lot of, the companies that we've spoken to, they have this kind of data in so many different places and systems in so many different places, and none of it's talking to each other, and none of it's tagged, and none of it's intelligent. And so sometimes we have to do some extra work to work through those pieces. But, when you're working with a customer, all you want to do is help them succeed, right? So it's one of the reasons why we love, the partnership we have with SAP and others. So we can kind of help them actually not just deliver a great customer experience, but also deliver a great experience in every aspect of their business. So we really try and, work with them. We're doing a really cool piece of work at the moment with an telco experience, right? Similar situation, 3 to 5 days to deliver a router to the home, right? So we're doing some really amazing, augmented reality, guided selling, really cool stuff on the front end. And then working with them to kind of create that really amazing fulfillment on the back end as well. And, I think when we come out and actually, deliver this experience to the customers, it's going to be incredible. So for us, and particularly for me, right, I just want to make sure that every customer who uses it absolutely loves it. And I think if you're in this kind of business, that's the perspective you have to have, right? You can't sit there and be like, well, this is my bit, and if something else goes wrong, well, that's their problem. Geraldine, I don't know if you've got any other views on that.
No, I completely agree. And we've got another client up in Singapore who's just going live now to 1 million consumers using our technology. It's the biggest client that we have. And again, it's all about making their lives easier and better, and helping them get better skills, helping them get the job that they're looking for and get promoted in the job. And again, in COVID times, really important to close that job skills gap. So, we're applying this technology in places that isn't just about shopping and banking, but, even out into citizen services. So, we're very excited. We've also got a client that we're working on with SAP in North America, which is in the do-it-yourself hardware. Customers not coming into the stores the way they used to. How do we actually, really get to know them, but not only serve the individual consumer, but serve the tradesperson as well? Because what we're finding is with SAP is because they've got so many business-to-business customers as well as business-to-business to consumer, we're able to handle these types of use cases as well. So we're helping, what they call the pro in North America, or the tradie as we see down under here as well. So, it's great. I must say COVID's meant we're locked in our office, our home locations. We can't travel. We even worked out how to virtually deliver this technology internationally using, mediums like this. So I'm very proud of our team that's in Melbourne, which has been in lockdown, and we haven't been able to be back in Singapore since January, and yet we're still delivering, great technology experiences for our customers as well.
Can I just add something to that, Shelley, as well? Because I think one of the things that we are seeing right at the moment is, and there's a very old piece of research that showed that there is a huge amount of innovation that occurs during difficult times, economic times, and what we're seeing right at the moment is there's a lot of organisations that have come out of the fetal position, and they're actually now heavily innovating, using this as an opportunity to change. But we're also seeing a lot of laggards as well. We're seeing a lot of organisations saying, "Oh, well, this will pass, and it'll be okay in the future." Well, I'm not sure.
There will be a vaccine. We go back to normal.
No, that's right, and I'm not sure that's the case. I mean, people aren't going to go back into office buildings that quickly, not because office space itself won't be safe ultimately, because egress in and out of large towers is going to be bloody hard. So
it's really a strong point what you're making, Tim. I happen to be honored to be a church warden here in Amsterdam. And it's a little bit the last place you expect to go digital, right? And once we started Zooming and now to hybrid services, sent to YouTube in public and then in Zoom for discussions, it is clear when I talk with other wardens and with the bishop, like, church will never go back. People will have now figured out, like, hey, I can wake up on a Sunday, and that day that I'm wondering, was I going or not? I can now sit in my PJs with my job and walk in service and still have the rest of my Sunday. And of course, all these churches are trying to reinvent themselves. Like, how do we get people coming here? And if we don't, how do we get them to evolve? And how do we get them to give? And this is the same what Tim just said, right? Winston Churchill had that beautiful line, never waste a good crisis. Yep. And the core point is now we've got a system intervention, an economic system intervention, but also a supply chain that should not be 100% effective, but actually needs some slack and some overlap and some backup plans in it. The question we're now going to have is, like, how do you create agility to lasting resilience? And exactly in Tim's words, some are figuring it out and others think like, yeah. And I think the one line, Tim, is back to you guys. I still see a lot of companies still thinking, I just optimize my segmentation. And one of the things you guys have been doing is, no. We're moving from segmentation to individualization because we can do so instead of multiple variable customer segments. I call this the pizza metaphor. Years ago, I had the incredible privilege to work for some time with Don Peppers, together with Martha Rogers, the spiritual fathers of one-to-one marketing. And their vision was not in par what technology could do then, and now the technology can do it. It was, it's an old vision, should we really embrace it? And my one line is yes, because we had what we call the pizza metaphor. I only need 14 products, 14 individual toppings, cheese, ham, etc. And for sake of simplicity, ham and cheese is the same as cheese and ham, which for some people it isn't. And I have 14,238 products version of pizza I can do. So multiple variable delivery isn't the same as a multiple variable customer segment. You can treat individual customers just with cutting your product or your service in subparts. Now, the hardest part is the back office.
Yep.
How do I calculate the profitability?
Yeah, well, I think that you touched on a really important point there, Mark. And Geraldine spoke before about Half Moon Bay and then our Queenstown sessions all those years ago. You know, this whole concept of MyWave was all about, you know, focusing on the individual and how do you get the individual as part of the dialogue and feeling like they're empowered and therefore that they'll trust a little bit more. You know, it's very much about you don't need to replace all the systems in an organisation. One of the core tenets of MyWave is this orchestration capability. So rather than saying we're just going to create a completely new stack, we said no, we can orchestrate across stacks. You know, with inside and outside organisations. So, you know, if you're a brand that sells drinks, and you can bring in weather information into the engagement with the person who goes to their regular shop or their regular service station to pick up some drinks or their regular retailer, you can actually change the relationship, bringing in externalities in real time. That's orchestration of data. The AI piece makes it even better. You know, we've even seen, you know, envisaged situations where we have, you know, personal avatars. So you got your personal guide who's engaging with you, someone that you can actually trust a little bit more, not in a creepy sense, as Amy quite rightly says, but in a native sense, a more natural sense for the individual.
This reminds me of something long time ago when I came to Australia, and I think that I picked up from Geraldine your slide which you had with all the customers and the way all the touch points for the customers. I'll tell you a very interesting story. I came into Australia and I was hired to work for a large retailer in Australia. I won't name them. We were rolling out SAP BW, and my job was the chief analytics officer. So my job was to make money out of data, as they say. I went in and I asked the IT team, explain to me the architecture. So they explained me the architecture. This is where the vendor is. This is where the supply chain is. This is where the inventory is. And after all of that, and I asked them, where is the customer? Yeah, we like the customer somewhere.
Yeah, so
we've
true.
had so many.
We've had so many
like
of that. Exactly. Yeah, the customer's nowhere.
Yeah,
exactly. In fact, even on strategic slides, I often ask, "Where's the customer?" Oh no, they're implicit. And I said, well, if they're not explicitly named on the slide, then you forgot about them.
And to be honest, that day I got the entire leadership into the room and said, "This is a flawed architecture." And to be honest, due respect to them, they all agreed, and we changed the entire thing. It was a SAP rollout, by the way, but we made a huge change that day, and we turned it around to put customer in the center and everything around it. And that's where, when I saw your slide, I just was amazed to see that, you know, this is something that happened in 2005. So 15 years later, we're still trying to see the same thing. And, you know, I was really amazed by that.
In fact, the idea for MyWave originally came when I was the president in North America, as I mentioned, was, you know, what's after CRM? CRM is a 20-year-old technology, and surely that was the last customer innovation. Really? You need a CRM system in there, that's fine, but it actually doesn't do the job, because it's all about sticking the customer in a funnel, trying to stalk, track, and market to them. And so that's why you have the running shoes chasing you across the internet, the camera, you know, it's continuing to try and sell it to yourself twice. And even in Amazon, they haven't solved it, because I can go and buy a present for a nephew, and I'll have that present chasing me forever, and I only want to buy that present for my nephew once.
Buy a book, and you'll get recommended the book you had just bought. A week later. Yeah,
exactly. What a waste is that? So all that marketing waste. So we solve that problem completely, because we're able to use the data and the knowledge about that person in that dynamic two-way interaction. And the whole thing is dynamic. It's not decision tree oriented. It's not static. It's not a static web form. The last innovations. Oh, we can just get you to fill in an Adobe web form, and I just feel like beating my head on a wall. Really? So some other poor bastard, key that into a backend system somewhere down the track. So honestly, it's fascinating. We've got a lot of dinosaurs out there that we work with, and I say that in the nicest possible way. But the good news is that there are many brands out there that already know that, and they're on this journey, and that's what we're having so fun with. And these are the innovators. These are the dreamers. These are the people who actually understand customer experience, understand customer data, understand the benefits. And quite frankly, there will be the companies that will win and grow through COVID, and the ones that stay stuck in the old paradigm, they're going to continue to have lackluster performance.
No, absolutely, and that also reminds me for CRM. Initially when I started talking about customer analytics, this is way back 2000, right? And when I used to ask people about customer analytics, they used to say, "Oh, where is your call center?" I said, "Well, actually, customer analytics has nothing to do with call center." That was the first question. The second question is they used to say to me was, "I've got a CRM," and I used to ask one question. I said, "Has anyone seen a CRM system? Has anyone seen a single customer view of a single customer view?" Not one person, because what they've seen is one customer and their transactions. That's all they've seen.
That's all they care about. Yeah.
That's all they care about. But when you do customer analytics or when you do personalization as an outcome or as a result, you need to look holistically, and that is the problem, because it's a shift in the mindset.
So Shelley, one of the things is, it's a beautiful English language expression, denial is not only a Egypt. And there are companies as well that can't even do what they call in consumer psychology customer 101. Customer 101 is 4 steps. The ability to take the order, right? Imagine you're in terrace in sunny Sydney or sunny Auckland, and there's no cover, and you wave there like, "Hey, waiter." And the waiter says, "It's not my area. I will be just with you in a minute." And after 10 minutes, you're like, "Dude, I just want a cold beer," right? The second is the ability to deliver the order. I've made this order, and after 15 minutes, it's like, come on, let's just go. Never going to get the beer. Now the opportunity cost goes up for the company. The third is the ability to get the payment. Now, companies like McDonald's got that right. You first make the order, then you get the payment, and then you do the delivery. So now you are locked in the waiting time and not around. But the most important, the ability to repeat the experience, because that is that part. Most companies don't even track those 4 benchmarks on me as a customer. They track it on their process, like how many calls did we have, of the average waiting time in the customer. It's all about their personal efficiency. Yeah. Now, if this was a relationship, a couple, marriage, 2 partners, it would be a major fail, because you would not even say, because relationships that mostly don't work because you take care of you. It means actually your relationship because you're actually interested in taking care of the other, and the other takes care of you. Yeah. And we all know this as human beings. The moment we become a business, we become this efficiency machine. And if you can't even do that, right, then the next step is actually don't ask me the same question twice and don't tell me the same offering twice, unless you have seen signals that I'm hesitating. Like I go back to the camera, I put it in my basket, and there's an abandoned basket. 2 weeks later, I go back to the camera, I put it back. There's clearly some hesitation. Now, then don't say, "Do you want the camera?" Because I want it. The part is, what's stopping me for doing it? Is it the finance? Is it the bundle? Is it the insecurity if I'm actually going to use it enough? And finding that intrinsic motivation is actually all in the signals that we give as human beings, the order in which we go to our clicks. And what I notice is this efficiency paradigm of analyzing and using analytics exactly, say, on the transaction and on the walkthrough, instead of just saying, what is the intent? Right? This is exactly where you guys have been going, and what made me so excited to have you guys here with us. What is the intent behind this behavior? And I mean, as Tim said, right, we are now talking about not just 2 or 3 times, we're talking tenfolds of revenue and return on the investment in those processes. And it's a no-brainer, and still people are not even able to take the order.
Yeah.
And how do you have that? And now back to you guys, because it's a long intro. How do you have the dialogue with your customer when you really see that on this maturity curve? Your customers love your product, love your software, love your organization, especially love your virtual deployment. I'll take some. And you're like, dude, you don't
there's an old saying. Yeah, there's an old saying that if you're a brand that sells shoes, are you selling shoes or are you selling something else? And I got taught very early on in my life, people don't buy shoes, they buy beautiful feet. At the end of the day, no one buys the product. One of the lines anyone who worked with me at SAP or Oracle or Automation Anywhere would remember me saying, no one gives a hoot about technology. They don't. Organizations do not buy technology. They buy outcomes for their business. And consumers are exactly the same. Now, if I'm a family sitting at home, my broadband provider knows me because my name's on the account. It doesn't know my family. It doesn't know my context. It's never asked. The organisation that with my satellite dish that provides me with broadcast television, it doesn't know my family. It doesn't know anything about me apart from my credit card details, which I change every 6 months because I don't trust the buggers. It's like that. There's an attempt in the digital world. With Netflix, you can set up different user types, but you've got to understand the context of the individual and what's happening in their life. History isn't the only thing. Sorry, Amy, over to you.
I want to say in the moment as well when you said context, because the one thing with Netflix is that it kind of loves to track what you've done, but where am I in the moment? Who am I watching with? What am I doing? What do I feel like? And that's where I think it really lets down, because the real benefit of it is saying, well, I'm watching with my child. Well, if I'm watching with my child or my husband, my viewing profile is going to be so different, right? And it's not going to be like the British periodical history thing I was on last week. So I think the more we can kind of combine that historical data with what we learn about you and what we want to do in the moment, I think that is where some like the real magic happens. And, again, not chasing you with, cameras that you put in your basket and purchase later on or that kind of thing as well. So, I just love the way we can start to create these moments of magic, right? Like no customer has expected you to be able to create this experience for them. And when you can deliver that, it's such an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I agree, Amy. And the lovely thing is that was our design principle, was that creating magic. One of our designers used to call it witchcraft. I used to say, how did you do that? You go, witchcraft. But, it was, the net is all the data actually exists. That's the other funny thing. It's all there. It's amazing. Think about all the things that you do, like the boring mortgage experiences, the terrible insurance experiences you've been through, the awful telco experiences where you get stuck in a never-ending IVR loops on someone's contact center. Think of every bad experience you've ever had.
In all fairness of the business, just to pause for a second, is actually as terrible for the employees who have to deal with it and the contact center as it is for the customer. So let's not bag on those
I agree.
employees.
Yeah, no, you're right. And anyway, but the the data is all there. And so this is why we've created a combination of AI and then data orchestration and personal data. So we're taking operational data, experience data, and intelligent personal data, orchestrating that in the moment, contextually, to get the end-to-end outcome that the customer wants. That's essentially what we've done. And we've combined all that into a turnkey platform and turned it into a set of products that people can deploy quite quickly. And it's been a long and interesting and challenging journey, because it isn't simple what we've done. In fact, the head of Google, Diane Green, who's the former CEO of Google Cloud, she said to me, hats off, because what you've done is actually really hard. And it is. It has been a very challenging platform to build, but it's great that we've built it and we're now finally out there, making it real with customers in different parts of the world. So we're just loving that part of the journey.
Actually, I might just add something to that, Geraldine, because in the Christchurch, in the Queenstown planning session we had all the way back in 2013, Geraldine flew in some people who were university professors and very well-known authors of some of the great theories on this stuff. And I had the privilege of facilitating that session. It wasn't just the three of us sitting around with this, interesting idea. There were some of the biggest brains that have ever written on the subject of the customer and engaging people sitting in that barn in Queenstown. It was quite a, I remember hopping on the plane from Sydney to fly across there, and typical me, I thought I'll just do a bit of prep on the plane, and then I started reading the profiles of the people who are going to be in that room, and I went, excuse the French, but oh shit, it was like one of those moments where, oh my God, I'm dealing with some superstars here. How do I handle this? But it was some really deep thought that went into this whole experience, and the way that Geraldine and Amy then founded the business and got it up and running is a testament to some great thinking, but also some that terrier instinct you need when you got to start up and you've got a passion and you really want to make something of it. You believe in it in a really big way. These two have got that in spades.
Okay.
We're so happy and lucky to have you, Tim, too. So we make a great triad.
So I want to move on to a few questions before.
Wait, Mark. I've got one question before you jump in, because there is. I'm coming back to you, guys. Great conversation. COVID has made a huge impact over. For all organizations, and what I was thinking was that has created huge extra volumes of data. So earlier, people who were not even interested in looking at some data points are now storing that information. Have you seen something different of COVID times, something that you've extracted or something that you used additionally to what you were doing earlier? Is there any kind of a change that you've seen in your own technology?
I think what I've seen is that the sense of urgency that business as usual is no longer good enough is the important thing. The data hasn't really changed. I think people's behavior has changed, though, going back to Mark's point. So the behavior of people are, I could get sick, I might catch something, so I'm not going to go to the food market, or I'm not going to go to the pet store. And so, even just in working with SAP account teams in North America at the moment, the statistics that we've been consistently hearing across major companies is there's like a 200% to 300% increase in the volume of what's happening online versus people coming through the store. In banks, people aren't touching cash anymore. People are not going into branches. And in fact, even old people are actually, don't have passbooks anymore, and they're having to, use a banking app. So it's causing this behavioral shift. So if anything, it's accelerating the adoption of the technology more and more, and increasing the pace of what we're doing. We've been more busy now than we've ever been at any time since a company started, and I'm delighted that we spent the last 4 to 5 years building the technology, because you wouldn't want to be starting out trying to do this with something brand new. It is now enterprise grade, enterprise ready. So, and we've also got the scars of all of the early learnings of what works and what doesn't work as well. So Shadi, I don't think the data has changed. It's just that the propensity and the urgency of companies to change customer experience, be different, get more sales, keep customers coming back, get that cross and upsell, take down the cost to serve the customer. They're really hunting now for that revenue and profit lift that's making it harder in these COVID times.
Okay. Mark, over to you. So,
great.
Any questions that you've got for these guys?
Yes. I want to go back to the question I just wanted to point out.
Yeah.
So let's connect exactly the point what you just said. You're working with SAP teams, you're working with customers, digital is going forward. I think one of the things that made you unique, and of course your historic relationship helped in navigating that process, is that SAP a few years ago opened an SAP App Store. Now, enterprise apps are not like iPhone apps or Android apps that you press the button and they're there. It's a little bit more complex. But you've been one of the more successful SAP App Store partners in that process. And I think for listeners that already are looking to connecting their solution with an enterprise and with enterprise software like SAP, I think some of your guidance to them, like how do you make a deal with such a company like SAP? How do you get into an app store? What does it mean? What do you do yourself? How do you connect? I know there's a lot of questions, but some of the three of you sharing some of those experience, what that means to get your, because it's a phenomenal way of scaling your distribution mechanism and to your go-to-market. But it's not the obvious for enterprise startups to come to that fault. They first want to make a solution. They think they go on their own. When I coach them, I have like, no, you need to partner.
Mm-hmm.
You need to partner with the SAPs and the Salesforce and those kind of solutions in this world if you want to scale and connect to that enterprise solution. So how do you went to that path? What would you recommend some people to do?
Well, I might kick it off and I'll pass across to both Tim and Amy because they'll have their views on that. But I think that the first thing that's important is that SAP has opened up most of its systems. So we were able to connect MyWave.AI to the SAP systems through what was called the Kima platform. We were one of the early adopters of that. We were able to, including the learning about what Kima was, because our engineers had never heard of SAP before. I said, come on, let's go and connect to SAP. It was like, so we've heard of SAP. So, but if I look at that process, we were able to, including our learning, get everything up and running and integrated in less than 1 week. That gave us a lot of confidence. So I think the key thing is that SAP has opened up a lot of the through APIs and data. And in fact, the other beautiful thing about SAP is it's really any SAP customer who's invested in the SAP environment, the data is really well tagged and really well organized. In fact, we can come in and do magic fast in an end-to-end SAP environment. In fact, that's our favorite sort of hunting ground. Doesn't mean that we can't communicate to Salesforce and all of the other Oracle and everyone else, but the data is done in such a way that it makes it very easy. Then if you go into the spaghetti network style, brands, yes, we can connect to that, but there's a little bit more integration work to be done. So that's the first point. The second one is that SAP in its DNA is really good at partnering. It always was. And in fact, when I started back in early days of SAP actually grew through partners, Accenture, Deloitte, all of the Ernst & Youngs, etc. And I think today SAP has realized that a lot of innovation doesn't just always happen on the inside of SAP. What it needs to do is open up. And in fact, one of the Half Moon Bay recommendations we made was a thing called the Beehive. And the Beehive was an app center. So I actually smile to myself that a lot of the early ideas that you see that have now become real is in the app center. Actually, we called it, let's make a beehive. Let's bring all these bees together and go make new things, So a lot of those things were things that we were thinking about back then. It's beautiful to see it's all come together. And so, and I think it does help, to your point, Mark, that we're all ex-SAP insiders. We've walked a mile in the shoes of the customer, but we've also walked a mile in the shoes of the account teams that service those customers. So we know how to play properly. We don't come in marching all over the place. We're very respectful. We're very partner friendly ourselves. So I don't know. Maybe throw it over to Amy and Tim on any other thoughts you have on that.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, G. The other thing I would add is two things. One, as much as SAP or any software company would like to think that all of their customers are end to end completely SAP. Of course, they're not. So that's having great quality data is really important, and that's an attribute of SAP customers. But the ability to orchestrate data was core to us because we knew that it wasn't just going to be traditional SAP data. And let's face it, over the last 7 or 8 years, SAP has done a lot of acquisition work, and I think done that exceptionally well in the way it's brought different capabilities into the fold. But those things don't just merge together in one day. So there's a lot of data sets within the SAP environment. The second thing I was going to add, back about 10 years ago inside SAP, we had a world tour by a guy by the name of David Thompson, who wrote an awesome book called Blueprint to a Billion. And it wasn't a theory of his. He actually did research on, look at those companies that had gone from nothing to $1 billion in valuation. What were their common attributes? One of the common attributes was they had a big brother relationship. or in, to be politically correct, a big sibling relationship. Sorry, I will always correct myself on that. But and for MyWave, as much as I think SAP is an extraordinary organisation, it is a big sibling for MyWave, and that sort of comes out of that. It's very hard for a small organisation to just feel like it can knock open big doors based on a great idea. You need that big sibling relationship. I'd also hasten to add, one of the findings from David Thompson was that the big sibling also learns a bit from the smaller sibling, and one of the things that we are. I don't think Geraldine and I in our SAP days were ever known for our patience, and that hasn't changed. And there's a bit of pushing that we're doing as well, which is very welcome by our colleagues in SAP, because they're seeing that there's things that we can bring to the table in the fact that we're not stuck in the world of quarters, we're not stuck in the big product roadmaps. We're a lot more flexible, so we can actually bring different thinking to the table as well. So, just to add to G's thoughts.
Guys,
Maybe
great conversation. Sorry, one thing. To the audience, guys who are watching this episode, guys, if you're watching this and if you've got a question, please put that in the comment section. Very soon I'm going to take those questions one by one. So if you've got a question for 1, 2, 3, 4 people, please put in there and I will take that question. At the moment, there are more than 30 people who are watching this episode. So guys, if you really, well, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so please like it and try to share it on other Facebook groups so more and more people can learn from all the experience that these guys are bringing to the table. So Amy, you were saying something, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think a quick final point was, when you're dealing with big partners, a lot of it is actually being also very clear and crisp on your value proposition within that ecosystem, your go-to-market, and kind of your solutions that you're bringing. So I think, a very big learning for us was we had this platform that could literally do anything, right? We could solve so many problems for so many organizations. And for SAP, they're like, well, we have this account, we have this problem. How can we make it really easy for us to kind of bring you in there? And so for us, a lot of that was actually taking, this broad platform down into some kind of key solutions for the SAP field base. And that made, I think, it a lot easier for them to kind of start positioning it and to kind of get that kind of scale that we needed through the organization as well.
Okay. Geraldine, one question for you. Challenges being a startup. So you work with those large organizations, IBMs and the SAPs of the world, and suddenly you starting a startup. What kind of challenges did you face from starting up in 2012, 2013 to where you are at today? What are the challenges of a startup, and how are they different to being a large organization?
There's plenty of them, and I'd say, starting up MyWave and growing MyWave, it probably has utilized almost every possible skill set I ever had, and I've learned a lot on the way as well. And I'd say that obviously the first thing is you've got to take an idea and turn it into a product, which means that you've got to get it to, all the code has to do what it says on the tin. And, we've been pretty good with that. Then you've got to go and raise capital and make sure that you're not getting ahead of yourself. And we probably made a few sort of missteps in the middle because, we came out with this great product, but we were probably about 18 months ahead of the market. Remember, the world hardly knew how to spell AI back 2 years ago. So we actually took the product into the United Kingdom and did the world's first automated energy switching service because Australia and New Zealand were not ready for AI and we were too small to go into North America. So Britain was an easy place to sort of go and their data was good. There's a lot of things around, raising capital, making sure you keep your shareholders, happy, because they always want things to go faster. Things never go as fast as you would like sometimes. You have to be ready to pivot as well. So if you start off with one idea, then you pivot from that to the next thing. But every pivot is actually is another step in a road. So you think you want to go from, say, here, I don't know where my hand is there, to over here. And then you find yourself, you're going back on yourself sometimes as well. But in the end, the overall, momentum is onwards and upwards. And I think you have to have resilience. It's one thing I've learned. You've got to sometimes dig really deep. But we've had, fantastic, experiences, customers, partners, and you need really solid family members behind you as well, because I think my husband's very long suffering over the years, long hours and lots of travel. And of course, now it's no longer travel, but still long hours in front of Zoom and everything else. And surrounding yourself with great people. And, I'm delighted to have had, Amy and Tim with me on this journey, because we're a team. And and we're making it happen, and that's been that's the good side of the challenging times. And we've got great shareholders. We're very lucky to have some fantastic shareholders as well as great customers.
Okay, Marc, do you want to ask any questions you've got? And what is your point of view about MyWave.AI as a whole? So you've seen it, heard it.
Okay, I have actually a question for Amy. So no, this is a really important part. Like, a lot of our viewers are in what you call the 20 to 30, beginning of our 30s, young professional category, and they start their startup. And a few episodes ago, I actually quoted some Harvard Business Review articles and research stating that the best startup executives are those that are in their mid-40s, end of their 40s, because they built on the successes, but also the knowledge of failures. And in the words of the famous American philosopher Clint Eastwood, they know their limitations. And so for you, right, you're working in this combined team, right, and with an incredible energy. And you're one of the top of the team. So how, and I know this is really politically incorrect to ask about age and gender differentiation, all the kind of thing. But seriously, how is it to work with the old geezers?
Do you know what? I will tell you this. I actually love it. I mean, these old geezers, are awesome. I wouldn't be working with them if they weren't. But I think it's really cool because, I think for me, it was my first job out of university. I had this real passion to create experiences that I wanted to experience. I mean, let's be real, like the experiences that you get with a lot of enterprises are not up to scratch for what I personally would want. So when we decided to start something like MyWave, it was a huge passion of mine. And so I think, when we work as a team, I mean, I kind of bring a little bit more of that, we call it the millennial perspective, but I guess it's the younger perspective, right? That kind of concept. But I think, working with Geraldine and Tim has also been incredible because I learn a lot from them as well. So I think, founding teams where you have a mix, both of genders, but also of ages, I think is incredibly powerful. And, we can all learn from each other. And I think that is part of the magic of of the team we've kind of built together. And I'll be honest with you, I've enjoyed every single moment of the journey that we've been on. And I'm sure I'm going to enjoy every single moment from here on out. And the ability to create, I mean, I was going to go potentially work for IBM right out of university. And I could have gone and done that, and that probably would have been incredible as well. But being able to create something of your own, I think from a growth perspective as a young person, you grow a huge amount, right? And taking on challenges like this. And so I think any, person of my age out there who is thinking of starting something like this, I think getting, a slightly older counterpart who can, be that balance for you is not a bad idea. But equally, I think it's a huge opportunity. Like, these are the times to take those risks as well. We potentially don't have mortgages, we don't have families. So if you have a great idea, now is a great time to kind of think about how you can start to create those opportunities for yourself. And it's incredibly rewarding because you're building value for yourself, you're building experiences for yourself, you're delivering a passion that maybe you wouldn't get if you worked for someone else. So those are just all the things to consider, as you leave university and as you kind of enter the workforce.
But it's amazing, right? Because a lot of people that start their startup in their first 2 years after they left university, got some experience at a corporate, that's like, I have more than this corporate will give me. Then what I see, a lot of them are successful because they get more experience or seasoned industry veterans in their board of advisors. But you guys, your board of advisor is your founders, and I could ask Geraldine and Tim, how is it to work with the infants, to just make sure that I compensate for the geezer part, but I'm not gonna go there. I think what's more important actually is a question that many people of our generation have, Geraldine and Tim, is a lot of us are working in an employment base, we're making good money, we're getting our bonuses, we're getting our RSUs, we have a nice cushy executive position and title for the outside world. We all know it's a rat race inside, let's be clear, but for the outside world. And then suddenly you hear this person like, I'm starting my own company. And the first that happens on a birthday party is like, did they kick him out? Or did they give him a goodbye premium? Or was he going to spend, or she, more quality time with family? And then the other part is when you know people, you're like, why are you doing this? You have a mortgage to pay, you have a house, you need to get your kids through university. Certainly in the US, you have to pay incredible amount of study loans. That's for a lot of people above 40, which Geraldine still isn't, but for you and me, Tim, it's for a lot of people about 40 is a serious risk, right? An emotional risk to take. So how do you go in that process? What would you tell other people in their 40s that actually are contemplating that? How did you overcome those anxiety that most people have, like,
Well, for me, it's always been around growth and transformation and changing things and making a difference. And, you get to a point where you get so passionate about a topic and you can't, realize that dream inside the company that you're with. And it does, it does take a bit of courage to jump and do something very different. But there's been absolutely no regret on that, because it's been a fantastic journey in so many ways. And also we still get to work alongside SAP as well at the right time, because we needed to have a technology that was robust enough. We were able to, work alongside SAP, and I love the culture of the people inside the company. It's a fantastic organization. SAP is probably one of the best companies I've ever worked with. The people are amazing. The innovation that's still coming through there is really very, very strong. So, we're getting to do this, alongside SAP, building something that's very new that could never have been hatched inside. There's no way I'd think that SAP would have and created the environment for us to create what we have done. It's probably a piece of innovation, a piece of railroad track that SAP should have created, but would never have been worked on inside the company. And in fact, to be honest, right now, it's going to be a piece that is going to be a very important piece of the railroad track, because it's taking commerce and taking it to another level that hasn't been conceived of before.
Mm-hmm. And Tim, from your point of view, right? You made a step as well. You jumped in the company from coming out of a plane ride and thinking you could wing it, and then being like, oh, who do I have in the room? And suddenly you transformed that in your life to say, I'm going to be part of that. And therefore leaving a revenue stream that you were having at the moment.
You're on mute, Tim.
Tim, you're on mute. He
does it for suspense. You know that, right?
I do. It was what I just said was really good. I just can't remember because I'm so old. What I reflect on my career, and I always had a view that said, I reckon you've got a useful period of time in any role. And if you really do focus on the thing that is most important in building an organization, let's face it, it's people. I spent time in the venture capital game before I joined SAP, and I can tell you that if I looked at 1,000 business plans and I thought I knew something about how to assess and run a business, I knew nothing. A great idea with average people will fail. An average idea with great people has got a fighting chance. That's all about people. So in a corporate environment, if you're building a great team, you've got to actually build a team of great people, and then you've got to get out of their way. So I always took the view that there was a natural life you had in any role, and then you just got to move yourself on, disrupt yourself. And I've done that fairly consistently in my career, and I think that made it a lot easier for me to make some of these steps. I've got to say, if you listen to the way Amy explained her journey and obviously Geraldine's journey, you understand why it's pretty easy to do this as well. Two very talented people.
Okay, guys,
Great, thank you.
We've asked many questions to you. Any questions you have for us? Let's turn it around.
I have a question. You obviously, I must say, these are great shows that you're doing. What is it that made you want to actually start to run shows like this? Because I think it's actually very interesting to create this interactive dialogue. It's another way of creating a personalized experience, isn't it?
Yep. And there is a reason behind that. So I used to do a lot of stage presentations, walk onto the stage, talk about stuff. And the objective of what I've been doing for the last 3 years has been to educate people, to tell them what they're missing, they don't know. And so I thought this was the right platform to get people onto the show, and so that they can share their stories and what they're doing, and people learn from it. And it becomes quite easy for people to, I think it's easier to listen and get inspired from people who are starting up, or people who've done something in life. So I run a couple of shows. So one is this artificial intelligence startup show, and the other one is the Women in Data Science show. So there people get the opportunity to share their stories, their wins, their losses, their failures, which lead to wins. So that was the objective. So more and more people can learn from it. That's why. And I finally, I just picked up the phone and asked Mark, would you want to come along and let's do this show? And Mark said, yes, let's go. And so, and guess we are on 7th episode. This is 7 fortnights now.
Yeah, it's first I want to say it's as Tim says, it's always the team, and Shelley and I have this phenomenal love-hate relationship where we drive each other crazy with ideas. That's the hate part. Like I wake up and there's like messages, but the other part is this: we thrive on each other's excitement very positively, right? Like, sadly, been too long ago that I was in Sydney, but the moment I arrived in Sydney, the first day I directly had a beer with Shelley. Like, and I mean, I was like literally like, man, I'm starting my holidays and like 60 million ideas. At the same time, I'm also coaching some startups, either from a board of advisor or an involvement role, as well as some corporate initiatives within SAP, like we used to do when we started the Leonardo portfolio, brought this over to more co-innovation practice with clients. And I realized that what I was doing internal at large companies, I was very dependent on that video clip of that person, that quote, and it missed the dynamic that it came straight from the gut, like it comes from straight from your gut. So I was your voice, but it wasn't the same for the people in the audience or for people in replay to hear it from you. Mm-hmm. And so when Shelley talked about the concept, I had like, wow, the part of having me as a little expert, and from that expertise, giving a context to ask you questions, to at one part help you and your story look good, but also to help you to frame this in something that both you as a participant can use in your company. There needs to be something in it for you that you can use to take quotes and incorporate it in your branding. But the other parts, to have those lessons learned for those many AI startups that are finding out where do I go. And I mean, one of my favorite current startup I'm working with is at the moment also listening to this. And what I told her, the founder or the co-founder said, like, listen, you need to scale through, you have something that is B2B to C and B2C, but the reality is you need to scale to partnerships, not necessarily to SAP, but to other kind of partnership for what you do. But you need to start thinking about it in the beginning. The show is coming, our show is going to have some great examples for you, lessons learned, right? Because it's always better to make your own mistakes than somebody else's. That's the thing. And what I loved about MyWave, and Geraldine, you and I came in contact through Jamie, one of my most favorite sales leaders in SAP. I know he's watching, so I have to say that, but it's also true. And based on the work you guys already been doing, and like, I work in this company and I don't even know it until that moment. We're actually partnering with such a phenomenal solution. That's what we need to have in the show, because not only do we focus on little startups, we look at scale-ups, we look at corporate initiatives. And what you're doing is what 20 years ago, the Don Peppers, the Teradata's, the data warehouse players were evangelizing, but couldn't deliver because the technology wasn't at that point. As you said yourself, Geraldine, 2 years ago, the market wasn't even ready yet. Yes, conceptually, yes, consulting. So in one part, the acceleration of the last 9 months of COVID has realized as well, got a realization company that digital transformation cannot be avoided anymore. So when we do this show, I think we have a much better way to do things. The last is really important. We were doing a lot of events, digital events as well, focusing on what you call the most mature markets. So North America and Western Europe. And if it was basically in Asia Pacific, it was mostly focused on Australia and New Zealand, the English. And Shelley made a real good point, like, Mark, we need to spend more time on Singapore, on India, on China, on not just Australia and New Zealand and the Asia Pac. That's why we took this time slot, with the additional benefit that those at the West Coast are still awake enough to have the evening show. So that's a wonderful question. We never got that one before, actually.
No, but that was a good question, Geraldine. But you know what? We need you guys to get a platform, and the kind of love we've got from the audience is huge. You won't believe that we've had 5,000 live viewers watching this.
Wow.
Wow.
Did not know that.
No.
Tell me which platform will give you that, because we simulcast. So it's like you may see I may say 50 people are watching this now, but at a given point in time over 2 hours, we touch 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, which is so good. Even if they come in and watch a segment and get a story from you guys and take it, that's a huge learning for those guys. And they don't have to stay for the whole episode. Doesn't matter. So that is what amazes me in this particular environment. We're live at the moment. If I'll just say that out, we're live on LinkedIn. We're live on two properties on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. My last video, which I did, I had just after the live, I just saw we had 50 hours of viewership.
And I think it's also good for viewers to realize, right? We're doing this on a shoestring. I mean, Shelley is basically the MC, and he's managing these multiple channels at the same time through one tool. So sometimes we see him on his phone, and actually he's either giving me a prompt that I need to shut up, or he's actually directing some of the questions already towards the channel. But our prep time is the same as a normal event, right? I need to spend like some time 2 weeks before, when you guys are coming up, to dig into what you're doing, to get some positive and negative reviews, to get some remarks, to get some balance. And then, like yesterday, before I go to bed, I mentally prep again for today. That's the same, people at home or in the car or wherever you are, not on the airport, clearly. What you would normally do for a normal event where you physically show up. But in our marketing spend, this is the 7th episode of this. This is a fraction of what it would cost if we would do one physical event. So we can actually reach much more audience also in those replays. Now, let's be clear. Seeing Shelley one time virtual, seeing physical is 1,000 times more fun than seeing him virtual. But given where we are, my last airplane ride internet transatlantic has been the 2nd of March, right? We need to do something to keep the spark going. And as Shelley said, if we get one spark to the audience, to you, ladies and gentlemen, watching wherever you are, we get one spark out of that inspires someone, we already reached our goal. It's So
That's correct.
an answer on Shelley's question, what do I think of MyWave? I think I already gave half of the answer. I first is in the words of a famous fast food chain, I love it. It is this kind of concept that needs to go to market, that complements an enterprise solution, whether it's SAP or one of the other players, with that component that they don't have. And whether players like Salesforce are phenomenal in their engine, in their approach, again, it's that last part of personalization that you drive towards that end consumer or that end enterprise customer that makes the difference. And what do we do really well as large software companies? We create a phenomenal, replicable, standardizable, process standardizable engine. That's really what we're good at. And it helps also those enterprises to connect together. With those kind of solutions, and I do not want to use niche, I want to use this word complementary, they lead to innovation. Also brings me to my question to you. Every time there's a phenomenal, successful app on an iPhone, the next version of iOS has that standard built in. And there goes your revenue model. So sooner or later, whether it's SAP, Salesforce, Microsoft, Oracle, whoever says, oh, I'm going to build this stuff in my own solution. How do you anticipate that as a growing scale of where you guys are? How do you make sure you keep that ahead pace?
I think it's a mindset. What we have done is we've brought together essentially 4 and 5 different components of AI into a single platform. And we are still, even at this stage, and leading in the market. And in fact, SAP's been great because when they bring out, say, for example, the customer data platform, for example, the next release, we'll compare notes and say, are we similar? Are we different? And make sure we don't, overlap. And in fact, we're very complementary to customer data platform, and which is the customer data cloud today. So we work. This is what partnerships are about. But so far, touch wood, we have been ahead of the curve. We're still ahead of the curve. We also continue to innovate in that platform. The brain continues to get smarter. We're building graphs inside the brain. I think that it's the DNA of our company and the engineers that we've got. There's something a little bit different about us. And, it is about DNA. It's about how you get a combination of people to come together to create a certain, organism. We fondly call our organism the octamoeba. So imagine an amoeba and an octopus combined together. Amoeba is able to change shape very easily, and the octopus is the one that puts tentacles everywhere to pull things together with a single brain. And that's what we are. We're an octamoeba, and there aren't very many of those out there in the market.
So today's quote would be octamoeba, and I'll take that to the social media and say, hey, we're talking octamoeba today. Okay, guys, let's get to the audience Q&A. So guys, whosoever is watching this is your last opportunity to ask questions, and I'm now going to take the questions. Having said that, anyone who was asked a question and has gone off for a wonder or want to come back, this is the time to come back and see your questions. Here we go. Starting first. So comment from AFQY, a few quiet yarns, Auckland, New Zealand. Here to see Geraldine McBride and all. Okay, so
it is good to have fans, ladies. It's good to have fans.
Thank you.
Jimin Choco, hi Jimin, how are you? He says, will you take questions? Yes, Jimin, we're taking questions. If you've not asked a question yet, please ask it now and I will take it. Prapul Palli, hi Prapul, hi, how are you? He's saying hi Mark. Hi. Prapul Palli says hi Shailendra, hi Prapul. Let's go. Next comment is from AFQY. They say, is that the hedge maze outside Geraldine's window?
It is. It really is. And this is a real hedge maze. It's not a made-up background.
And it has a checkerboard of white stones and black stones inside it.
Yeah, it's very zen. It's very calming. I like walking out looking at it when I'm on the phone.
Okay, good stuff. Next question is from Nick. Dr. Nick is in the NZ SAP team, and he's saying, hi, Shelly, love this show. Thank you, Nick. can you ask about how MyWave contains people's privacy?
Yep. So the product is designed to be GDPR compliant, and because it's sitting inside the enterprise itself, we are also living with all of the authentication and privacy capabilities and security capabilities of the enterprise themselves as well. And then if the customer is using Customer Data Cloud or Customer Data Platform, we also make use of the preferences and consent receipts and security there as well. We handle that across the board. Very important component.
Okay. My point of view, not SAP's point of view, privacy is a myth. And that's what I've been saying because I've used customer data to provide them personalization. And in my view, privacy doesn't exist. You walk out of your house, if you're not covering your face, you're exposed.
True.
Which is much easier nowadays with face masks, Shelley. You have to do that.
Yeah, you're right. So now you need to be nice. Yep.
I think there's a really important point there. The way that MyWave was designed to engage in a two-way conversation, whilst you don't want to breach any legislation or any rules on privacy, it is important to actually engage in a different way. If you're having a dialogue, and you're learning through the dialogue. What MyWave is all about is actually having that dialogue and building trust in the conversation and in the relationship. Not trying to sneakily watch what you're doing with your phone or your computer and then trying to sell something to you through an advertisement. It's a very different approach, very much centered on the two-way dialogue.
Okay. Next comment is from Beck. Beck was here on our show, on the Women in Data Science show a few weeks ago. And she said, those company benefits are impressive. That's for you, Tim.
Yeah.
A question from Beck. She says, who is training your AI to ensure you're constantly providing unbiased input from the AI results? Do you use Shopper, for example?
Yeah, so essentially what we do is we're using the data that already exists, and yes, so our customers are training the AI. So the natural language, the customers will train themselves, and we can also train the AI. We don't really have bias in data because we're using a mixture of driving the process combined with the customer's business rules, combined with the data, to deliver the outcome with using also the real-time context. So the real-time context and the customer's business rules within that on how they want to handle payments or how they want to get a product approved removes a lot of that bias from the results. So it was very important to create these contextual outcomes for people that are what's the word I'm looking for, where we can actually show how the decision was made by the AI. I think that's important. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Rajesh Chandeliya. Hi, Rajesh. How are you? And the question is MyWave.AI or any other organization into complete end-to-end AI solutions, like from building AI model using machine learning to anomaly detection to computer vision and conversational AI, or all is done by different service providers? That's the first question. Second, I'm aware of Microsoft AI like Seeing AI app, Louis app. What all of the players are there in the market? Question one is for you, Geraldine, possibly, and Mark, you can take the second one.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I think that we actually do handle all of those. So we've built, as I said, we've taken 5 different components of AI and woven those into that platform. So it's got all sorts of things, algorithms, neural nets, combine it with customer business rules, orchestrating data, personal data, etc. So we're able to bring all of that together. And on the computer vision side, we partner up with the likes of Google's Google Vision product, so you can point your phone at a product. What's that? We can make use of that and bring that into an intelligent purchasing experience inside a retail store or online. So I think I've answered the question there because he's asked quite a few things there, but it's all of that is actually contained within the same full stack platform.
Mark?
So This is the answer I always hate to get the most myself. It depends. Like if you are very much on administrative document processing and you're already on Azure, you will more likely create a solution based on Microsoft components. The moment you make an enterprise solution that you know you're going to deal with different kind of platforms, you're going to look to the best of breed for yourself, but mostly important, you're going to layer up. You're going to say there is code, some code I made myself, some code I get from OpenAI. Above this are commercial platforms, Microsoft, IBM Watson, Google TensorFlow. And above that, you create your layer before you interact with your own app, where you create as much as independence and flexibility where you can. So when Google, IBM, Microsoft, or whatever says, this API or this microservice, I've decided to buy another company to depreciate this service, your solution is screwed. Excuse my friend, but that's what it is. So what you need to do is build flexibility in your layering of your platform. You say, I can exchange this component for that component. Now, componentize, layers, service-oriented architecture, those kind of words have been there for the last 20 years. The great thing now of looking at it, it's more a concentric wave part, some code components, somebody else's code and your code, somebody else's services, your services, somebody else's super services and your own super service, and then your layer that you connect to your product. That's what gives the highest flexibility. The point is, you need to do it from day one. Because otherwise, when you have your viable product, your MPV, your minimum viable product or your minimum delight experience, and you go and build it in production, and you suddenly get confronted that one of your suppliers changes the rules of the game, you're screwed. So do it from day one. That would be my 2 cents there.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Leighton Jenkins, and I think that's for you, Geraldine. Hi, Leighton. How are you? Question, can you share some design wins or logos?
Yeah, so the projects, most of the customers we have, they're all under NDA still at the moment. So we actually are encouraging them to come out and speak. And in fact, we've got a couple of them who've agreed to become Gartner case studies, which is good. But they haven't given us permission to share the logos publicly yet. But if I just give you an example of the industries that we're in, we've in with a huge government agency in Singapore, major media company moving into the telco space, retailers, banks, another bank that's working between banking and insurance. So there's many different industries that we're working with at the moment, and since we've built our relationship with SAP, Amy, Tim, and I are working, all the hours of the day at the moment, working with many other brands as well. Have I missed out in the industries? I don't think so.
B2B2C manufacturing.
Yeah, B2B2C manufacturing as well, automotive, and major beverage company. Yeah, so
there's some really cool stuff in like not traditional banking, but kind of challenger banking, very smart kind of current account, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's slightly different to maybe what your thoughts are in traditional banking as well.
Yeah.
Can I extend that question a bit? So which industries do you see much more interest from? Is that retail, financial services, telco, or any particular industry, or all of the same?
Tim, do you want to answer that? You've been looking at that.
Yeah, so retail, consumer brands, utilities in the broadest context. So not just power utilities, but also utilities in the context of telco and the like. Financial services in challenger brands and health insurance and areas like that. And interestingly, education. Education is a huge sector. Because, and think of the dichotomy that we have at the moment of lots of jobs have gone away, and there's an argument that says a lot of the ones that have gone away will not come back. Now, it doesn't mean that there won't be new jobs created, but the skills for the new jobs need to be created, and people need to feel like their career aspirations are being built. So this whole issue of new jobs, new skills, and new personal career aspirations comes together. And the other one that we're seeing, I think it's moving a bit more slowly, as it tends to, but is in the whole area of citizen engagement. So we're absolutely seeing that unique proposition that a citizen is both a taxpayer and a recipient of government services needs to be completely transformed. And we've seen a lot of efforts around the world. In the state of New South Wales and Australia, there's the lipstick on the front end of. I was about to use a term, but Mark would correct me if I'd use the term. But there's lipstick there on the front end of government services. But you can't make a digital organisation with a purely a digital front end, and you've got an analog operation. So there's the ability to actually engage in a different way. And we're seeing some really innovative stuff in the airline industry, for example, which arguably is one of the most decimated industries. That as a result of this, airlines need to come back as different organisations to the ones that departed. They need to change who they are, and we're seeing a lot of interest in that industry and in the broader travel and tourism ecosystem around that, and building some government in there as well, because there's going to be the health and visa type issues that when bubbles are reset up for travel, you're going to have more than just airlines wanting to check you in. You're going to have health bubbles around for some time. So they're the key industries, and the organisations that we're looking for are those that are innovators. We tend to drop engagement with organisations regarded as laggards. We just haven't got the time to deal with them. And secondly, lots of people, lots of transactions are some of the qualifying questions we look for early on in those industries.
Next question, I think, Mark, you can take that. Ramesh Gadia. Hi, Ramesh. How are you? He says, why need RPA from another consultant firm as SAP, as S4 has its own capabilities?
Well, first is intelligent RPA hasn't been that long in SAP, of course, right? We released it basically January a year ago. So before that, companies use other solutions. The second is there are companies that believe that everything should be as close to the supplier, the vendor, and other companies like to hedge their bets by having best of breed. I think if you're mostly focused on enterprise processes, SAP's Intelligent RPA is a very powerful tooling because it connects non-SAP and SAP tooling together. If you want to orchestrate all kind of other mechanisms that are not necessarily SAP, I can imagine you would take another kind of tooling. So I can only give this answer without knowing more of the details of the case. But everybody has the right to make their own choices, decisions, and wrong acquisitions of software. So as SAP, I would recommend SAP.
Okay, next question from Ramesh himself. He says, please throw some light on RPA-based voice-enabled tool for P2P. I think he was mentioning B2B. Mark?
Yeah, so P2P is very nice if you want to do torrent downloading, though. But more practical, yes, of course. I mean, most voice recognition are actually only text-to-speech and speech-to-text. So if you have a typical process, if you have a Google Voice at home, you say, hey, Google, close my curtains, right? Or, hey, Google, I have guests. You actually have a great example of robotic process automation because it closes the curtains, dims the lights, starts Mumford & Sons on Spotify, etc., right? So don't make voice more magically. It's just text, speech to text, and text to speech. And the more languages supported, the easier actually you get that translation, that you don't need to make the back end in different languages. You only do that in the front end.
Okay. Ramesh Kumar says, hi Ravindra. Sorry, Ravindra Kumar says, SAP texting industrial solution from AI. I don't know what that means, so I'll move on from there. Ramesh Gadia says, health of master data is very crucial to think this digital initiative. Any expert advice on the same?
Yeah, well, I'd agree with that. And in fact, some of our very early customers that we were working with, we came up with amazing use cases and then they said, oh, yes, we've got the data available and APIs. And then, guess what? The data wasn't very available. It wasn't smart. And so we learned actually the difference between good data and poor data. And again, that was another good reason to tie up with SAP, because data generally is in such a well-organized, easy to consume way. But you're right, master data is important. However, what we've been able to do also is if data isn't perfect, we can also take it into our brain, put some graphs around that, and actually make that data better in terms of delivering, that outcome. So we're finding ways also to work with less good quality data, but generally that statement is true.
Okay. Just add something to that, Geraldine, as well. The other thing that ability of the ability to take data into the MyWave brain, one of the things that MyWave does enable organisations to do is that they can move to their new environment, a more digital environment, over time. One of the big old model of big projects, massive time, and then switch over. This is one of those technologies that is a layer of technology that orchestrates and leverages the clever AI and NLP type technologies. But it means that you can actually take your time to move across in a more gradual way, but get some of those benefits up front. That's really important to the customer proposition here.
Yes,
and I think as well, just to add to that, like Tim, great point, is we see some customers who want to put all their data into a data lake, into one data lake, and to be honest, that's expensive and it takes a lot of time to do. But that is one approach you can take. Or some of the customers are actually using us, as Geraldine termed as the Optimiva, which, as long as you have identity management, we can actually be kind of drawing data from all these different areas to actually help to drive the processes you want to create for your customer, without having to go through that very expensive and kind of lengthy process to kind of get everything into one place. So, those are kind of two approaches you can look at. And obviously, the quality of your data initially will probably have some bearing on the approach that you take. So, every company is different, but, those are kind of the two examples that we see of what companies are doing.
So I just like to add one thing there, right? So for chief data officers, etc., data governance, ownership, accountability, stewardship are important concepts, really important. You see organizations are making great strides at the moment of data capture to improve things, to cleanse, harmonize, and standardize it. And at the same time, as Amy said, you can never get 100% clean. A good example is in this call, somebody called me Marc with a K, which is, by the way, Marc Teerlink with a K is my second removed nephew in the US. Well, Marc with a C is yours truly, right? So one typo already can then make the discussion, do we see this bloke as the same or not? And if you don't have more like date of birth or address, it goes wrong. Or it goes wrong again, right? The moment I'm moving from one city to another, you say, oh, these guys have two different addresses. It isn't the same. I'm like, yeah, it is. That's still my delivery shipping one, and this is where I live. And so you'll always need to do some smartness to compensate for what the harmonization, standardization process didn't do. Plus, you need to realize you never get it clean. Everybody who has teenagers at home know that 12 nanoseconds after your house was clean, it looked like basically a nuclear disaster took place in that 1 minute. So
you're sounding very much like an old bloke there, Marc. Very old there, mate.
But it is true, isn't it? By the way, I used to be the teenager. But so the point is, right, we have seen situations that we cleansed, we did data cleansing as a service, and we cleansed a whole professional healthcare apparatus provider stuff, and within an 8-hour shift, 12 nurses of one hospital managed to basically get 40 or 50 different versions of that one client back in the system. And that magnified over the world, because it was easier to type in the client again than to go to the procedure of looking them up, identifying and finding the right department. It's much easier to just type it in. And that you will always have, no matter what you do. So you need to capture that later in the process where MyWave at that moment goes back to that customer. Worst case, you have like, hey, I have Marc with a K, Marc with a C, just to be sure, which bloke am I talking to?
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, next question is from Dr. Nick again. He says, does MyWave support languages such as Japanese or Korean, since they are agglutinative languages and are more complex to process?
Yeah, so there's a couple of answers to that. We support any languages that can go from top left to bottom right. That's point number one. So in terms of, because we can take intents from many different sources, we can support just about all languages today. But in terms of natural language processing, he's right, they are more complex to process. And, today, right now, we don't support Japanese and Korean, but in our 2021-22 roadmap, we have that on the roadmap. And I've always said to SAP, if we had a really, really large Korean or Japanese company that really wanted to buy us now, we would bring that forward. So, just haven't got one of them on the prospect list yet.
Challenge for Dr. Nick. Nick, you should find us that client, mate, so we can bring that forward.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, we're delighted to do that.
Dr. Nick, you've got the challenge. Anyways, next comment is from Jiva Nadan. Hi, Jiva, how are you? She says, great show, Geraldine. Amy, keep up the great work. Thank you, Jiva.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jiwa.
Okay, very quickly, next question. Question for Amy. Ramesh Gadia, question for Amy. What's the importance of business process functional analysts to implement such digital tools?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, when you kind of look at an implementation, there's kind of two processes to look at, right? So there's the initial process that, a customer or a business has to take to get the outcome for the user. And then there's the process we want to create. And then with intelligent personalization, there's the process that the user is probably going to take, and that might be very distinct depending on who they are. So, when we look at these kind of implementations, we need to get inputs from the business side, and in terms of how they can help to fulfill those. We need to understand what the systems need, because I'll give you a good example. If we're doing, for example, a mortgage renewal, so today a mortgage renewal system treats every renewal like a completely new application, right? And that's just how it happens. I went through this, 6 months ago, and my bank pretended they'd never heard from me before. So, the system requires that, and there'll be a process that the bank requires, right, that will to get you that renewal. But from the customer side, there's going to be a process, because if we know what your application was, we have the relevant data of what you're spending and what you earn and all those kind of things in the application you've made before. The process that the customer sees from a renewal perspective is going to be incredibly different to the process that those backend systems see, and potentially even, the banker sees, because the banker now doesn't have to, key in data from a written form or from an Adobe form. So I think understanding those processes and how we can map those from what they currently are to these new experiences we're creating is incredibly important. And we continuously get input, along the way in the journey of the implementation process to kind of make sure we're getting all of that right.
Yeah, maybe one quick add on there is that we've created what we call rapid prototyping tools. Remember when you do customer journeys and you have to fill out little post-it notes, and they go on a poster and they go all the way around the room, and the customer journey spans around the room 1.5 times. Well, you don't need to do that with MyWave.AI. So essentially, we say, what outcome is the customer wanting to get? And let's say, I want a mortgage renewal. And then we say, right, mortgage renewal, that's what you want. What data elements are needed for a mortgage renewal? These data elements. Right. What would a normal, simple conversation be if you've got that data need to be in order to be able to get that outcome? And so we use the rapid prototyping tools, and within hours or just a few days, we would have actually live software in customers' hands being tested of that process, and we initiate that with dummy data. And then when they're ready to say, yes, we've signed that off, we then link that up to the back-end systems and make that whole thing end-to-end real. That's how you transform business processes on the fly, no paper, using the AI technology. Data and conversations, driving processes, never having to write code again.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Geraldine, you asked me a question, why do you do this show? This is why. Ramesh Gadia says, I'm really loving this conversation, as I can correlate the challenges and learning experiences while working on same project. So this is what makes me feel so happy that, yes, at least even if one person gets a little happiness and enjoys the conversation, makes my day. That's why we did do this these sessions. So thank you, Ramesh. Thank you for loving the conversation. It'll be great if, and I think I can see you're on Facebook, please share this on other groups so that more and more people can learn from this conversation and what Geraldine, Amy, and Tim are talking about. So please share it on various groups, and I would like to see a love on that on Facebook. Okay, thank you. Next question is from Dushyant Tyagi. Dushyant Tyagi was on on one of my shows last week, and it was an amazing conversation. He is an advisor to the Prime Minister of India, PMO office of India, and he says, and this is to the comment, absolutely, somewhere we need to start sharing our experiences and learn from others. Collective wisdom is important to change this world.
Well
Thank
said.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the comment, and we'd love to have you again on the show very soon. Okay. Finally, I'll take the last comment or question, and we'll try to finish this off. Okay. Ramesh Gadia's last comment, and he says, "Hi Tim. Talent and competency are the most important factors for the digital projects. What's your view?"
I think that's absolutely. I think that's absolutely true, and the first thing is that getting people empowered to innovate in an organisation is really important. People are excited by the opportunities to change the way organisations operate. But, one of the benefits of intelligent personalisation that I spoke of earlier is employee engagement improves. So those organisations that deploy intelligent personalisation, and the best of those, product in the category is MyWave, but they have significantly higher employee engagement. That's because people are getting to do what people are really good at, which is think, be creative, discuss things, come up with new ways of doing things. What people are not good at doing is the mundane stuff that they really, just doesn't stimulate them at all. So I think that's the issue of talent and freeing up talent to do great things is what we're all about. I think the second thing is there needs to be a level of competency in the designing of digital solutions as well. I don't think these are things you can design in a back room and then think you can deploy, which is why, as Geraldine said earlier, we've got the rapid prototyping capability. Trial and error and getting things done quickly and getting them in front of users really quickly is very important. So using great people, freeing them up from the mundane, making sure you've got the A team on the project, and doing it in a way that is iterative, prototyping rather than white yellow stickers on walls are the key ingredients to success in projects around what we do. So it's a great point, Ramesh.
Good stuff. Thank you. Finally, Ramesh says, "Really amazing virtual conversations I've ever had on AI. Would like to learn and connect with you guys in future. All the best." Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you very much.
Ramesh, I'll give you a call in about half an hour and look forward to an order, mate.
And actually, to be honest, he's asked one thing which I would really post. Okay, here we go. And he's asked, "How can I reach to you guys to discuss further?" So, Ramesh, if you can reach out to me, and I will try and get you some details so that you can reach out to Tim or Geraldine or Amy and take the conversation forward. Okay. Thank you, guys. Those were the audience questions. Finally, before we go, one comment I would like to take from each one of you on personalization or today's conversation, whatever you want to say. I'll start with A for Amy.
Right. So I think with personalization, we think a lot of it is kind of, big data, kind of stalking and tracking a little bit. And I would encourage people to think about how we can bring more of that human element to it, right? Customers are not prey to be stalked and tracked. They're human beings that are looking for a relationship with your brand because either they love your products or they need to get something done. And so how can we really change how we think about that to say, well, how can we personalize the experience that we're having while maintaining a very human element into that, where they feel like they're building a true relationship with us? Because I think it's in those relationships that we build that actually a lot of the brand value comes into it, and that's how we get customers coming back, and that's how we get fans and advocates for life. So I think it's a very important element because, you know, a lot of personalization tends to just kind of be like, well, great, you know, we've got this, you know, big data tool, which is, you know, obviously, you know, useful for some things, but it's not the be all and end all of personalization.
Geraldine?
I think the key thing with personalization is put your customer truly at the center of everything that you do. And it's quite possible now, and you need something like MyWave.AI to make that real at scale. Otherwise, it's very, very hard to try and build it, and chatbots will never do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Marc?
I'm going to give you 3 words: speed, relevance, and timing. Speed is exactly like, don't come to me with yesterday's things that I was doing. Come with me with intent that's relevant. And to relevance, it's don't ask me the same question twice, unless there's a really valid reason, and tell me why is that reason. And timing, there's no point being the second horse that wins the race. There's only one winner. So be that winner. You guys are doing a great job. I think those 3 words, speed, relevance, timing, is absolutely what MyWave provides. To give a shameless plug, 3 words: speed, relevance, timing.
Okay. Tim?
Disruption. So the world has been massively disrupted in the past 6 months. That disruption is not going to stop just because, you know, numbers of COVID patients drop. I think the world has been disrupted, and we've gone through an inflection point. Personalization is a way to keep your customers close to you. And if you're not being close to your customers right now using personalization, your competitors are. So it is an absolute time to act right now. Now is not the time to sit on your hands. Disruption is occurring. You better disrupt yourself to get close to your customers, and personalization is the way to do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the show. You spent more than 2 hours with me and Marc. Which is
Amazing.
Do we get overtime? Do we get overtime for that, Charlie?
Yes, the tech is on its way. Hopefully you guys have a great time, and all the best.
Thank you. We really appreciate the conversation, Marc and Shaili. Thank you so much.
Right.
We love talking to you today. It was a great conversation. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye. So guys, those were Marc, Amy, Geraldine, and Tim. I hope you learned a couple of things from this episode on personalization. I think MyWave.AI is a great platform in itself, and is really doing, and the guys are doing a great job. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you did, then please do not forget to follow me on LinkedIn if you're watching it on LinkedIn. If you're watching on Twitter, please follow me. If you're watching on YouTube, please press the subscribe button and smash the bell icon so that you get alerted when next time I go live or I upload a video. Finally, if you're watching on Facebook, I've just learned something new. Then please share this with not only on your network, but also share it with the groups that you're part of, or where people can learn on personalization, analytics, data science, artificial intelligence. So please share it with the audience, and so more and more people can learn from these episodes. And so thank you very much, and it was a pleasure having you guys on the show, and you guys watching and spending time with us. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.